Hi, it's Crystal, and welcome back. Today we'll be finishing off chapter 6, continuing on with Arunny. So, by the end of the chapter, you'll have a very good idea of her headspace and just how deep her love of her husband is. I reach over to caress my husband's face, who returns my gesture with a grateful smile. He does not wake, yet he senses my presence because he instinctively reaches for me and pulls me towards him into the warmth of his body. There I lie nestled in the security of his love, praying to Buddha I will soon be with child. I take his hand in mine, hoping the pairing will further illustrate to Lord Buddha our unity and that he should bless us with a child. We would be good parents. Everyone knows this, dare I say, except Buddha. I instantly regret the undercurrent of bitterness that flies freely from my thoughts and concentrate on the hand I am holding. My husband does not have to be awake for me to feel the love he transmits my way, nor does he have to touch me. All I have to do is think about him, and I flush with pleasure. A look from his brown eyes, a smile from his lips aimed at me, leaves me blushing and my heart pumping joyfully. I did not think myself capable of loving another person as much as I love my husband. My husband loves my hands. He told me they are his favorite part of my body. I found this funny, but he assured me it was no joke. A person's hands say a lot about them, he reasoned. Your hands are entirely representative of you. They are tiny, delicate, and perfectly formed, and they move with a grace I never get tired of watching. I smile at this and take extra care in keeping them well manicured, which is not an easy task when you work as I do at a restaurant. Every evening, after everything has put back into its place in the kitchen, I take a lime and rub vigorously at the stains from my day. Only when my hands are in perfect condition do I return home to the arms of my beloved. I realized I loved Chan when I was 10 years old. It was a secret I held on to for years, and likely would not have confessed it had it not been for another girl in the village who was also fond of him. I had known about her for some time, but I never suspected her affections were reciprocated. One evening while walking, I discovered them quite accidentally. I almost smashed into them in the darkness while they were sharing a kiss. My body instinctively comprehended the situation before it registered in my brain. My stomach slid down and cried before my eyes could respond. I excused myself and tore away into the night. When I thought I had reached safety, I bent over and retched. My misery poured onto the ground and ran over the sandy surface. I did not notice the warmth sliding over my feet, nor did I care. I was so preoccupied with staring at my vomit as it spread out that I didn't hear him approach. When I looked up, there was genuine concern in his eyes, but my eyes betrayed me. Arunny, his voice held a softness that bore deep into my heart, making me cry even more. Arunny, what's the matter? What did I do? He knelt before me, his knees sinking in my vomit. His inquisitiveness unexpectedly enraged me. I wanted to slap him for his ignorance. How could he not know how I felt? It was so obvious, and the more I thought about it, the angrier I got, until I was no longer sad. I was furious with him. He sensed the sudden shift of emotion because he recoiled backwards, sincerely puzzled at my response. Have I done something? No, I pushed him over and stomped off, leaving him to his confusion. We did not speak for 3 weeks, which threw off the dynamics of both our families. We had spent every day together since birth, so the sudden absence of his presence broke my heart. I did not think it possible to cry as much as I did during those 3 weeks. I cried out of sadness. I cried out of anger. My emotions flipped about aimlessly. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I would lie awake and replay the evening I disrupted the kiss over and over in my head. I rehearsed how I should have responded until I perfected it in my head. I could concentrate on little else other than my despair, while he appeared to function with ease. I was certain he was not losing any sleep over my grief. How could I be so devastated and he so unaffected? It was simple. I meant nothing to him. Our friendship was a joke. The other girl had replaced me, and they were laughing at me. Every time I saw them together, another piece of my heart spiraled to the ground with a thud. Why did he think she was so great? She wasn't that attractive. And even more bothersome, she wasn't even that nice. How could she trick him like that? He really was stupid. Then I would feel guilty for thinking poorly of him, and I went back into my head and had him discover on his own accord what a tyrant she was. She would tear him to two if given the chance. His gentle soul must be saved from the likes of that woman. Then I would fall asleep again, only to be reminded in my dreams of what I did not have in the light of day. Who knows how long the situation would have continued had it not been for my brother. My brother disgustedly announced, "You're behaving worse than a baby." I knew it was true, but I couldn't help it. I could not shake what was clinging to my brain and preventing any sort of rational thought to penetrate. His honesty was what I needed to hear and prepared me for what I had to do. Another day had passed with me soaked in self-pity, a lavish behavior that should really only have lasted a few self-indulgent days, not weeks. I sought comfort in the color of life. The lake sat before me, and the sun set in the distance. The silhouette of a lone boatman commanded the lake. His paddle arched above the water and then dug beneath the surface, his effort sending a trail of ripples behind him. If I had been close enough, I would have seen the muscles in his arms flex with the motion of each stroke. The shrubs in the foreground and the buildings on the other side of the lake held the blackness. The only color remaining was the perfectly rounded orange sun slowly dipping behind the horizon. The orange was the brightest at the core, and its rays stretched forward across the gentle waves of the lake to the shore where I sat. They extended across an expanse of sky until the orange faded into gray. After the last trace of light was gone, so was the boatman. Many thoughts fill my head, and I tried to find a place for them to rest. I had put so many expectations on a friend who was unaware of how I felt. It was important to live day by day, moment by moment, and not get ahead of yourself. But I had gotten way ahead of myself. I had our whole lives mapped out before me. He would woo me with his affections and endless attention until I became his wife. We would have lots of beautiful children. The merging of our hearts would be effortless. The only part I actively would play was in theorizing the entire process in my head. Everything in between was in the hands of my husband-to-be. He knew what to do, what was expected, for, after all, he could read my mind. It was good to dream, but it had to be based on a solid foundation built by two people, not one erected in the imagination. It was okay to be disappointed when life did not follow the path one wished, but I realized I was not being realistic. I had not been fair to Chan. I believed Chan was a good person. I had known him my entire life. I sometimes felt I knew him better than myself, which is why I was so thrown that he could love someone else. I never saw it coming. What continued to confuse me was that there were times when I thought I saw affection in his eyes or heard it in his words. I was almost positive it was there, waiting for me to acknowledge it. Yet I was too shy to do so, hoping he would act instead. But he didn't. What stopped him? Could it be that he wasn't interested? This was hard on my ego, for I could not imagine him not wanting to at least maintain our friendship. But that seemed to be a reality I was refusing to face. I was wasting too much time living in anger, and we lived in a small village, and our families were friends, and I knew I would have to witness the balance of his life unfold before me. I hoped I could do it with sincerity. I knew I couldn't resent him for not loving me. I wanted him to I wanted to leave him with the acknowledgement that his friendship was precious. On the surface, the tears that graced my cheeks were no longer for my hurt. The tears were for no other reason than the darkness had come upon us, and the world had to wait for the sun to rise again. I didn't mind the dark then, and in fact, I still adore the night, because with it comes the stars. I always wondered what it's like to be a star sitting high in the sky looking down at the world below. Did the star know people were looking up at the same time, admiring its twinkling from afar? There was no need to cry with so much loveliness around. A twig snapped behind me, alerting me I was not alone. When I turned my head, I faced the man I loved more than anyone. His eyes spoke the words his mouth could not. We sat with our arms wound around each other, gazing up at the star-filled sky. We did not speak. We were content to linger in our silence. I was later to learn that he had been out walking, distressed from the events of the previous weeks, when he stumbled upon me watching the sunset. He confessed he was going to keep walking because he knew I was unaware of his presence, and he didn't want to face my rage. A force he could not control possessed his feet, and they refused to walk away. Perhaps it was the calming sound of my breath or the stillness in which I sat, but he stopped and watched me as I watched the sunset. He told me that by the time the sun had left the sky, he realized how much he loved me and could never be apart from me. We have been one ever since that sunset brought us together. From that day forward, every sunset has held a special meaning in both our hearts, as does the silence of a star-filled night. Whenever I look to the stars now, I think of my husband. I think of the love we share, more precious than the setting sun. The warmth of sleep still clings to my body as my mind continues to fuss. Try as I may, I cannot persuade my mind to shut off, so I can go back to sleep. It's early. The roosters haven't even spoken. It's much too early to be this awake. Waking before dawn is the new pattern in my life, one I would like to break. But my mind will not permit me with this luxury. I'm forced to stumble around my troubles in the wee hours of the morning. Rather than use this time to solve them, my mind dwells on what I cannot control, my body's inability to conceive. Every morning I prepare myself for the arrival of my monthly, telling my heart it's okay if it comes. But it's not okay. I don't want it to come. I want to have a baby. It is exhausting to try and prepare for a disappointment that I know deep down is going to happen. But I disregard this thought because I so badly do not want it to be true. There is always hope. Always. If I say it firmly, believe in it, it has to be true. I'm a good Buddhist, a good woman, a good sister, a good friend, and a good wife. Believe, believe, I yell inside my head. Yet it doesn't matter how loud I yell. I find my thoughts drifting into the inevitable. I struggle to prepare. I did not need to know there is a I did not need to look to know there is a red blood stain on my underwear. All the symptoms are here. The breasts are tender, the slight cramping. Yet somewhere in the corner of my brain, I hold out for hope against hope. I am wrong. I lie motionless, listening to my husband breathe. The sound of his breath normally soothes me, and my rhythm matches the pattern of his peaceful inhalation and exhalation until sleep is once again upon me. I am unable to capture his serenity today. I ignore the churning sensation from within my organs and attempt to convince myself it is not my blood that it will flow outwards. It is my body forming the beginning of a tiny baby. If I lie until I can stand it no longer, I hope this will be true. I follow the stars that light the way to the clearing. I can check for blood and relieve myself there rather than go to the toilet. With each step, I begin the process of mentally preparing myself. It will be there. It will be there. I know it will. I know it will. I keep telling myself it will be there and then it won't be as disappointing. When I reach my destination, I squat low to the ground, releasing my pee, which streams on the cold ground. When I finish, I remain crouching, looking off in the distance at the stars. I look everywhere but for the evidence on my underwear. Somehow I think if I look elsewhere, the outcome will be different. But I cannot prolong the inevitable. I try to force my eyes to glance down. They refuse my request. I inhale, calmly filling my lungs to capacity, and I look down. Regardless how long I look the other way, it does nothing to ease the distress when I see the red stain on my underwear. I knew it would be there. There is no cushion for my fall. Tomorrow we will begin a new chapter, and I look forward to introducing you to our third lady. She is the Hmong grandmother from Laos, and I think you'll really like her. Thank you so much.